Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Because this is Airwindows FatEQ. Looks pretty normal, right? High, high mid, low mid, and bass. Well, here's the thing. This is using my usual sort of crossover-based EQ concept for being able to produce a flat sound that is extremely high resolution, but I'm doing something a little bit different with boosts and cuts. So check this out. Back to this reference sound. Let's start removing everything as much as possible. Highs, high mids, low mids, and bass. We can make them go completely quiet, but then when we start bringing stuff in small amounts, we've got a difference in tone here, because what's happening is I am modifying each of these bands by running it through either a fattening behavior or a leaning behavior. Not leaning in the sense of falling over. I mean leaning in the sense of it's a sine or sort of anti-sine function, which is causing it to either be very saturated or anti-saturated. You're hearing the latter. So this is a narrowed out sound. You can allow the full bass to get in or cut it right back. And now what you're hearing is sort of the peaks and edges of the sound poking through. But we can do the opposite as well. So listen to this. Full crank on all the bands at once. Is heavily saturated in a way that's not covered by just plain turning up bands alone. There's a lot more going on than simply turning up high, mid, H mid, bass, and high. And this is padded quite a lot. I'm not sure whether I have the same thing happening on out. And we can do the same thing on this track, Alien Kittens. For instance, if we wanted bass to be extremely boosted, you can boost it a whole lot. You can boost high mids. This is distortions on everything. We can pull the gain back, or we can allow it to become louder again. And then if we're at full volume and we pull the bass back, it's going to give it a little bit more peak energy relative to the thickness of it. We can do that with the low mid as well. Notice that you're still hearing lows, kind of. It's just that they are being expanded upwards a little bit because we're applying a transfer function to just only that band, which is making its quiet parts quiet down more than the loud parts. And I do have it set up so that you can cut it completely if you want to. And that's basically what's going in here. We can pull highs back, but some of the edges on the highs are sticking around. Same for high mids. It can be dark, but there's still this little edge on there because the louder peaks in the highs are being let through more than the quieter stuff in the highs. And the same goes true with the opposite if we're boosting. Highs come forward because they're being distorted. High mids come forward because they're being boosted. And we can make the lows come forward because they're being boosted. And then if we want, we can cut the low mids at the same time. For a very exaggerated kind of sound. We're still getting a little distortion there. Back to flat. If we go back to the rock sounding track and boost high mids, the effect will be very obvious.
The Washington is on the New York Stock Exchange.
Bring the guitars right forward again. Or bring the cymbals right forward.
Right through the screen like horror from Japan. And they sang Discord welcome.
Or bass forward.
We're all so glad you're here. Discord welcome.
There you have it. So think of FatEQ as a quick little EQ for if you wanted to bring elements forward or backward in space rather than making them just louder or quieter. Because in my experience, that's the way it works, is if you're saturating and boosting things, they seem to get closer. It's one of the reasons people like tape effects as much as they do, is it makes stuff seem like it's getting closer. But then doing the opposite, which is similar to what I do in my bus plugins and console builds, you do the opposite and sounds will fall back. It'll seem to be farther away. And that's one of the reasons I'm building lots of reverbs and trying to maximize this distant quality by emphasizing peaks over RMS. That's also why you'll have some difficulty getting super loud stuff to sound as if it's also big and deep and spacious, because as you push harder, you'll tend to boost RMS relative to peak, and that's going to make everything sound closer. Now, people may very well like that a lot, but there's other kinds of sounds to be made. And FatEQ is, of course, a AU and VST and all manner of other stuff for all manner of platforms, including retro ones. I build on antique platforms and also build for antique platforms because I don't think that your old computer should become obsolete. You should still be able to make music on lots and lots and lots of them because they got powerful enough to make music on long, long ago. I mean, I compile for Raspberry Pi, so that gives you an idea of what you can make happen with these plugins. And with that pretty much covers FatEQ. It's pretty straightforward. And I'm kind of all excited because I discovered an interesting thing today. There is this fellow. This is just a list of stuff that I need to make plugins-wise. I have a new thing to try. That's because this fellow named Dave, goes by Lucid, suddenly came out with a plugin that seemed to be trying a interesting thing, which gave me ideas. So he has made a thing called an erosion clipper, and he's from the UK bass music scene. So as you might imagine, look up Lucid and erosion clipper if you're interested in taking bass music and having a really elaborate way of making stuff be hyper-loudinated with a more interesting tone than you get from just using clipping. And the way he's doing this is he is attempting to dither clipping. Now, that might sound really weird to you, but anytime anybody mentions dither, I'm always interested, obviously, because I have been making dithers since like 2007. So I looked into this, and his idea basically works. The idea is you can do your clipping and then sort of dither the threshold value. And you do that and you can get sort of delicate volume modulations on even stuff past clipping. It should actually work. And I don't know anything else about this guy other than I'm talking to him a little bit in private messages because he wants to be able to make a mono version. And I know how to make mono audio units that are also end-to-end, so they're surround. So with a bit of luck, he'll get that together. I'm not quite sure how he's making these plugins, but I like the basic idea. And it gave me an idea, which is I already have Clip-Only 2. And Clip-Only 2 manages the initial and final clips in any section by scaling them back so that you enter into the clipped section more subtly. But what he's doing is taking the entire clipped section throughout and just dithering it, meaning adding noise to it so that it's not a consistent clip threshold anymore. And in so doing, he figures he can take, for instance, you could run a test tone, and he attempted this and found that it worked. You could run a test tone and then have it not produce fold-back harmonics, which is what you get when you're distorting something and getting aliasing. Well, I don't have to do things his way, but it seems like there might be some use to taking the onset and outgoing clips in my not 80, it does also have that though, in my Clip-Only 2, and including the white noise there and dialing in what level of randomization I would need in order to just specifically break up the aliasing issues that has, because what it does is soften attacks and releases from clips, and this does a really good job sonically, but it doesn't specifically address aliasing. What it does is soften it in a way that might be somewhat randomized. So it does a thing, and it's a useful, worthwhile thing, but maybe I shouldn't be looking for a fixed threshold, a fixed amount that it'll dial that back at all. And so I'm going to be experimenting with this, and I look forward to seeing what I get. And if you're a bass music producer or somebody who just is really into ultra extreme loudination, then that's not me. But if you are, then check out this erosion clipper thing that he's doing. That said, I'm going to get off making my videos for the meter things that I do each week, because I do a thing for $10 and up patrons where I will play a piece of music directly in an unlisted video and show it on meter. That way you get to actually hear it properly. And this time I'm doing Yes's Leave It, because the producer there did a phenomenal job at a super 80s production. But the one that I'm going to let everybody see but not actually hear is I'm continuing the forbidden music posts with one of the forbiddenest of all forbidden musics. I'm going to show you how Prince's Let's Go Crazy measures on Airwindows meter. And you'll hear tiny little clips of it as well, but never more than like half a second. That's the way I have to do it. But I'm quite excited because, funny thing, in doing these two pieces of music, they're both extremely 80s productions, and they're both doing the thing of producing a scattering of peak energy. My meters only show peak energy, not RMS at all. Like if you did this erosion clipper thing to music and then showed it on meter, it would just be a line across the top. And I don't care about that, so I'm not going to be trying to do a version of the erosion clipper thing. I'm going to use it for the breakthroughs there for my own purposes. But you'll get to see how something measures if it's Prince's Let's Go Crazy. And if you're a $10 patron, you get to hear and see Yes's Leave It off of 90125 as well. And they both have that 80s thing, the mastery of 80s thing, where all of the sounds, whether they're quiet or loud, are exactly the same balance between brightness and loudness. They're all a uniform sea of the same color of dot. And then they're also cyan colored. They're on the bright side of perfect as far as being sonorous, intense sounds. And it's really quite striking. So that'll be fun. And I'll talk to you later. Hope you enjoy FatEQ. And I'm working on a whole bunch of other cool things. So thanks to my Patreon people. Without it, I wouldn't still be here doing this. And turns out, I like still being here this week and doing this because I stumbled across somebody who might be just a vibe guy making a plugin who, for whatever all the other things he's doing, hit upon something neat that's related to some stuff that I've done before. Like I've done things like chrome oxide is basically dithered slew, effectively. And I mentioned this in the thread, and then other posters are like, you should include slew dithering. Slew dithering is not a thing. That's not actually a thing. But I have done stuff working in that region with noise, and it makes a kind of Boards of Canada E sound. But who can say whether maybe I can upgrade the already good clip-only 2, and I'm going to see whether I can make a clip-only 3 that's even better. On that note, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.